Hello there guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for another video. Today going to be talking about some recent Chelsea news, N'Golo Kante and Chelsea being linked with a new striker. But before we get into any of that, I want to ask you guys, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also hit that like button if you're enjoying the content because it helps out as well. Hope you're all having a good start to this bank holiday weekend in the UK or wherever you are watching this from. But let's get into it firstly with Chelsea strikers. We've talked a lot about strikers being linked to Chelsea, from Moussa Dembele, Dries Mertens, Timo Werner, Lautaro Martinez, basically a number of strikers we talked about. And it's sort of gone quiet recently, especially with Dries Mertens apparently now staying at Napoli. That looked like a really realistic option for Chelsea and I thought would have been a good signing. But now we have a new name, and this is another Napoli striker because according to Sport Italia, Chelsea have asked Napoli about the availability of striker Arkadiusz Milik. Now, Milik is 26 years old, so he's younger than Dries Mertens. Looking at his stats, pretty impressive considering he's not a first-team regular for Napoli. 12 goals in 22 appearances. That weighs up at a goal every 129 minutes this season in all competitions. He's a Polish international, and he's pretty much been a consistent goal scorer throughout his career. You know, not a main striker, but someone I think you could rely on to get the odd goal when needed. And that could be a really useful signing for Chelsea. And I think this very much fits into, from what I'm hearing, of this being quite a serious target for Chelsea, of the sort of profile you're looking for this summer. Not only in terms of the realistic expectations of a pandemic transfer window, a post-pandemic transfer window, whenever it takes place, of who Chelsea are actually going to be able to sign. But if Chelsea are about to give Tammy Abraham a lucrative new contract, they're backing him as the main striker, they probably want to look somewhere else for a little bit of a cheaper option. You know, if you're going to get someone who, like a Timo Werner, like a Martinez, like a Dembele, same age basically as Tammy Abraham, both of those players competing for one spot, you know, as much as it would be amazing for squad competition and depth and how strong that would make Chelsea, realistically, it doesn't happen a lot, especially in the modern game, and especially for the sort of wages those players would command, especially a Lautaro Martinez. So Milik is a different type of option, sure, not as highly rated, but is slap bang in the prime of his career, you know, not 30, 26, still got quite a way to go if he has a really good career and stays fit. So I think this is a realistic option, and I think it could be something Chelsea could get done, especially if with now Mertens staying. That could limit Milik's opportunities more. Milik may want a move away, and I think potentially for his sake he could come to England, a new challenge at Chelsea, and see himself as maybe a starter eventually, you know, competing with Tammy. Tammy's still developing and learning in his game, and I think that variety for me is so important if Chelsea are to have three strikers, Olivier Giroud, Tammy Abraham, and a new one. I think they're going to sign one striker this summer, and Milik definitely for me seems like a good option. I haven't seen a lot of Milik, but from what I've read, from what I've heard, I think that this, just in terms of the profile of the player we're talking about here, I could definitely see it coming to fruition. I really could, if Chelsea are serious about this, because I think probably Michy Batshuayi could be gone in the summer somewhere. Cost, wages, I think it all adds up quite well, but we're just going to have to wait and see how far this goes down the line, how serious Chelsea are. The report only says Chelsea have asked Napoli about the availability. Will he be available? Are Napoli willing to negotiate for that player? We're going to have to wait and see, but please let me know your opinions on Milik in the comments below. Next, I want to talk about N'Golo Kante. I've spoken about him a lot in recent videos about this whole situation of him being granted compassionate leave to go home from Chelsea training over fears about COVID-19. Sky Sports reported last night, this, as you can see here, the article on your screen, Chelsea midfielder apparently is prepared to miss the rest of the Premier League season if it resumes. The French international has been given permission to train at home, and he has the full support of head coach Frank Lampard and the club's board. The 29-year-old, though, did return on Thursday to undergo a second round of coronavirus testing. Kante lost his older brother to a heart attack just weeks before the World Cup in 2018. A few months earlier, the player himself fainted in training before being given a clean bill of health. So this comes out and there's a lot of reaction to it. And this is mainly what I'm going to be confronting in the video. Quite clearly, as I've said in previous videos, I fully support Kante's position. I think it's absolutely understandable. That last paragraph there, when we're talking about his past and the tragedy in his past, losing close people in his family and his own health issues in the past, is absolutely understandable why he would take a very rational decision of putting himself out of danger, not only for his own health, but the health of his close ones as well, that I think he's living with his brother at the moment. So that's very understandable. Where my problem comes with this is the criticism and response I've seen with this article. Really not from any Chelsea fans that I follow and I've seen. It's pretty much been across the board from Chelsea fans, very supportive of N'Golo Kante. The tweet that accompanied the article itself, the link to the article, I was just scrolling down and looking at the responses to it, and it was no other word, depressing, seeing some of the responses to the news about Kante's decision and the fact that he may not return at all for the Premier League restart. He shouldn't get paid, the sense of maybe he's feeling privileged at the moment because he's a Premier League footballer. All of this for me, I think, number one, in terms of just addressing N'Golo Kante, and then number two, for me, the big problem for me that I think is a wider general issue is not only about this pandemic, but something I've seen across the board that I could isolate down to this season, but I'm sure you could spread it out further than that, is the double standards with footballers, especially Premier League footballers. Firstly, the idea that he shouldn't get paid if he doesn't come back. Maybe that could be the case. We've heard about wage cuts before and players negotiating that with the club. That's still, I think, an ongoing thing. It isn't his responsibility if other people don't get paid or get sacked because they don't go in because of fear of their own health. That's not N'Golo Kante's responsibility. That is not any football player's responsibility. Does not matter because of the wage they earn. That's their fault. It's warped logic for me. That's the first point that I think is just absolutely ridiculous to pin on N'Golo Kante. Kante, as I've already stated, his background, his concern for his own health makes absolutely logical sense and would make sense if anyone in any other walk of life did it. But for some reason, because it's a Premier League footballer that earns a lot, that's a high-profile player, not the same situation. So once again, a double standard. He's had a very frustrating season. He has. I'm sure he is probably eager to get back on the football pitch as soon as he can, because this season for him at Chelsea has been defined by his lack of actual minutes on the pitch. He's had a lot of injuries, a lot of setbacks, and I'm sure for him, for the physical athlete he is, for the phenomenal athlete he is, I'm sure he'd love to get back on the pitch. But there's more important things than just playing football and earning wages. It's his health, and that's what he's concerned about at the moment. And as I said, a double standards with footballers, expecting footballers at times to be like robots that I've seen generally across the board, not just, as I say, with this pandemic, but, expecting them week in, week out to go out and play basically 10 out of 10, never complain because of the amount of money they earn. And that sometimes can get them, criticism from people because they believe that, footballers act like robots, they can act detached from the real world, that they're just PR robots when they speak in interviews. But then the moment Premier League footballers open up and be honest, they get criticised. They get criticised for being too pampered. Players shouldn't moan at all because they're so privileged. They get all this money that they can't have mental health concerns. They can't have stress. They can't have issues. Once again, double standards because other people, we speak about Mental Health Awareness Week, which is this week. I think it's just so telling. The response to N'Golo Kante's decision and the lack of understanding from some people is really irritating. Their salary is absolutely irrelevant in this case. Health before wealth is, I think, the first thing. And sometimes those things are comparable, but I think for me the fan abuse and the hypocrisy, I think, is just something that really irritates me. And it is hypocrisy in my opinion, because a lot of the people criticizing N'Golo Kante's decision to stay at home and not come back to play football are the same ones that argue that it isn't safe to send kids back to school yet, probably some of their kids back to school yet, making decisions daily in their own personal lives to remain at home, still keeping themselves in lockdown out of fear. What is different from your personal decision to keep yourself at home, your kids at home, to what N'Golo Kante is doing, not only for him, as I've explained, but for his family as well? I don't see the difference. The only difference I can see is this is a high-profile football player who earns a lot, that's known by a lot of people around the world, but somehow that makes it, irrelevant. His health shouldn't be of concern to him. Luckily, the thought process behind a lot of the criticism is not the thought process that goes on at Chelsea Football Club, not only by the board, but by Frank Lampard, who understand these players and want to respect their decision and want to support them in his very very difficult time and challenging time, because as much as, you know, Ruben Loftus-Cheek gave some quotes yesterday, very enlightening, saying they trust the process, there will be players who I'm sure feel differently, as we've seen a number of players from a number of different clubs throughout the last, 13 weeks we've been in lockdown, have spoken about the Premier League restarting and their doubts about it and their doubts about their own health and safety. Those things should not be dismissed just because of the pay packet they earn at the end of a week. I think it's absolutely irrelevant. And I think that it's, once again, it's the same people who complain about football. It's not more important than lives. It can't be in a bubble, which I've addressed points about that as well in previous videos. Then you can't make the same argument about N'Golo Kante taking himself out of a situation, putting his health and his family before playing Premier League football. It just irritates me, and I know a lot of you guys probably don't feel like this, who probably support Kante, who understand his decision. My thing that I will ask to you is, if Premier League players across the board now start doing this, as I think I touched on in a couple of videos recently, what's going to happen to the Premier League? Because I don't think you can have a legitimate restart if Chelsea are lacking a few players, if a number of clubs are lacking a few players because they're all concerned about their health. I just don't think, unlike the Bundesliga, you can come back and have a legitimate, honest competition, personally, in my opinion. Sorry if that was a bit of a rant. I'm not a guy who usually goes on rants, but I think I had to make those points because I think it's important to discuss and important to rebuttal those and speak about these things, because I think they are important and put into perspective. Some are just the facts and the logic, and I think it annoys me a lot of times because I think footballers can't win with people. That's simply the thing I think I've understood, and it's a bit of a shame. But that is today's video. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch it. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and a notification bell so you never miss an upload. Follow me on Twitter @SonOfChelsea, and I'll see you again.